it looks like we've got the majority of people on. So we're going to go on and start. Welcome today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Holland, and I am pleased to be able to present today with one of my dear friends and co-workers, Kendall St. John. You'll be meeting her in just a second. And we're so glad you were able to join us for this webcast on increasing collaboration through Work-Based Readiness Toolkit. First, let's talk about some housekeeping. First, these sessions are recorded, okay? And by participating, you're consenting to be recorded. Before the session is shared, they do clean it up and edit it to remove any identifying information, okay? And we ask today, if you don't mind, just because of time, as we're going along, if you have questions, if you'll type those into the chat box. Thanks. I want to start off by, again, Kendall, if you'll click, we're just telling you a little bit about our center. We are a sister center, really, to the VCU ACE Center. And like ACE, we are funded by the Virginia Department of Education, okay, and we're housed at Virginia Commonwealth University. We'd love for you to come to our website one day and visit, if you're not familiar with us, and look at our website. We have an abundance of online resources. That's the majority of what we do, is provide those online resources. We have, for example, free courses. We have free courses for students, free courses for teachers, free courses that parents and collaborating agency folks can take. We also have a lot of other professional development opportunities, like this webcast. We do our webcast as well and things of that nature. While the majority of our work is done through online resources, we do at the center also support some demonstration sites. All of the work that we do, though, is done with the focus of improving outcomes for our students with disabilities. Kendall, if you can go on. We thought we would get started today by just taking a couple of polls, okay? We want to hear from you a little bit. So Kendall's going to start this poll in a minute, but our first poll question is, okay, which statement best describes special education teachers' familiarity, okay, with workplace readiness skills? We recognize that maybe not all of you are special education teachers, but again, if you don't mind, participate in the poll. Okay, it looks like most people have responded, okay. Kendall, okay? And again, what we did was we did a continuum almost from, hey, I'm that person who doesn't even know what you're talking about, to I'm very familiar. And it's wonderful to see that many of the people online today feel like they're very familiar with workplace readiness skills. That is wonderful. I think, though, that it looks like the majority of people are kind of in that in-between range. You know, I know what some of these skills are. Maybe if I'm a special ed teacher, I know that they're discussed in CTE classes, and maybe I can name a few of them, but I'm just not that familiar with them. Okay. Go on to the next poll question, Kendall, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Oh, while you're getting that one up, though, again, I wanted to remind us, as special education teachers, then we really do want to make sure that we're familiar with these workplace readiness skills.
Oh, hold on.
That's okay.
Sorry. I thought I did poll 2, but.
And that's what we want. Whoops. It looks like everybody is clueless. No, I'm just teasing. You want to relaunch that one?
Yeah.
Okay. But again, as special education teachers, you know, how are we going to be able to focus on these skills unless we know these skills? And it's extremely important as special education teachers that, because these skills are so important to our students and their future employment life, that we not only know them, but we purposely think about how we're going to teach them, how we're going to model them in our classrooms, and then how we're going to provide opportunities for our students to practice those skills within our classrooms. Oh, good. Kendall's got the second one going, right?
Yeah.
And this is, we want to know about families. If you're a family member, that's great. If not, think about the families that you work with. Okay, how familiar do you think families are with workplace readiness skills? And it looks like most of you have had a chance again to, to kind of to poll in. And it looks like we think as a group, okay, that less of our parents have less familiarity with these skills than our teachers do even. And again, when we stop to think about how important these skills are, these are skills that we need to be teaching across environments, in our classrooms, in our homes, within our communities. So we feel like it's really important for our families to know what these workplace readiness skills are and ways that they can practice those within the home. In fact, all right, Kendall, if you can stop and go on to the next slide.
Yeah.
We feel like it's never too early. It's absolutely never too early to begin talking about transition. In fact, if I were king of the earth or, whatever, and could make all of the decisions, I would strongly recommend that we begin talking about transition, at least in kindergarten, but I don't always have those abilities. But we really need to stop thinking about graduation or the purpose of school being kids earning a diploma. The purpose of education really does need to be, that we are preparing students to work, to live, and to play within the communities to the greatest extent possible and to their greatest desire that they possibly can. I want to just give you an eye moment in a second, and I can't see. Can you close the poll for a second, Kendall?
Oh, it's closed.
Okay, whoops, sorry, I'm still seeing it. I wanted to show you real quickly this. This is my great niece, okay? And she is 15 years old. And by the way, yes, we call those, my hairdresser told me the other day that those are not called pigtails, they're called pig twigs because she doesn't have enough hair yet to even be called pig twigs. But I wanted to show you because I really was thinking about her the other day and thinking about our students with disabilities. As I said, she's 15 months old, okay? And within her family, every day, her parents put out a choice of 2 outfits. So she picks out her choice of 2 outfits between those 2 choices. Every night before she goes to bed, she's given a choice of 2 sets of pajamas that she can put on. And she picks out her choice of pajamas. She knows that when her parents say it's snack time, because she doesn't have the words yet, but if she goes to the refrigerator, then she knows that she's either getting ice cream or yogurt. If she instead goes to the cabinet, then she knows that she's getting crackers or whatever. But that really made me sad in a way to think that my 15-year-old niece, great niece, may be getting more voice and choice in her decisions than some of our students with disabilities have in their day. Please remember, though, that my niece and her husband are making a conscious choice, to build that into what they're doing with their daughter. Just as we, as teachers, as family members, we need to make conscious choices about how we are teaching our children or preparing them for future employment.
Thank you, Lisa, for introducing me earlier. I'm Kendall St. John, and I have the great pleasure of working with Lisa at the Center on Transition Innovations. And we're talking about the workplace readiness skills today. And Lisa did a really nice introduction with how soon we should start these. And really, I don't think 15 months is too early to start talking about workplace readiness skills, which might seem strange that we'd be talking to a 15-month-old or discussing those skills in terms of a 15-month-old. But really what we're talking about, as Lisa said, is independence. So specifically, the workplace readiness skills were identified several administrations ago by a governor in Virginia who said, we're in the 21st century. Let's look at those work skills that employers across the Commonwealth want all of their employees to have, whether it's the entry-level position person or it's the CEO of the company. So they surveyed employers returned the information, and the 21st century workplace readiness skills were born. These were skills that employers said, I want all of my employees to have these. And while we call them workplace readiness skills, you might think of them as sort of entry-level position skills, but they're not for 1 or 2 career clusters or 1 or 2 career paths. they're really those skills that everybody needs either to secure a job or to maintain employment. These are the skills that an employer, when you come in for an interview, they really want to know, do you have these entry-level skills? Looking at potential employees. But there are also skills that take time to develop, which is why we were talking about starting them as soon as possible. And these are things like, and we'll go into depth in a few moments, but there are those skills like conflict resolution or listening and speaking skills, and that ability to work with others, to work in a team. There are those skills that really we start working on when we come to school in kindergarten. As Lisa said, those transition skills that we start working on early. But we all know that those are the skills that we need to be successful employees. I don't know about you, Lisa, but I know that there are some of these skills I'm still trying to master.
Absolutely.
But they're skills that if we start early, we're a lot more likely to be able to demonstrate those skills by the time we're ready to enter employment. So the categories of skills. The 21st century workplace readiness skills comprise 22 different skill areas. Our toolkit looks specifically at 18. These were 18 that we felt suited school-age students the best to learn these skills. And they're broken into three main categories. The first are those personal qualities and abilities. These are really things like work ethic, integrity, critical thinking and problem solving that are internal skills. Those are skills that we have within ourselves, but that we build across a lifetime. The second category are those interpersonal skills. How do you interact with others? Things like conflict resolution, when you're getting along with others. Teamwork, can you work in a team? Can you work collaboratively? Or just listening and speaking. How well can you communicate with others what your needs are or what the needs of the business might be? And then the last category are those personal competencies. And really, these are things that are more geared towards work, like workplace safety. Do you recognize dangers within the work environment? Are you able to identify them? And then also to be able to either eliminate the danger or be able to figure out how to work around the danger. Workplace academic skills. When I entered special education, we were talking about trade-related academics at that point. But really, there are those work skills that are specifically related to a particular workplace. What reading, writing, mathematical skills might you need for a particular work environment? And then efficiency and productivity. Are you able to get the work done in the amount of time that you have to get it done? So those are those three broad categories that we'll be talking about today. But now I want to tell you a little bit about the actual toolbox. So the toolbox is located on the Center on Transition Innovations website. If you're looking on the left side of your screen, these are the parts of the actual toolbox. We start with a guide because we're a bunch of teachers. We want to tell you how to do it and how it's going to work best for you, sort of the how-tos. And there are how-tos for both for educators. How can you use this and how can you implement these skills and these activity sheets, but also how can you use these with families and support families in their use. There are also some how-tos for families. How can you implement these into your everyday life? Because that's really the intent of the toolbox, is to be used at home within your framework. No, we certainly at this point in everything that's going on in our world right now and in the state and with schools, our intention is not to add an additional burden, but how can you include these activities in your daily life? There are also some additional resources that you could access through the toolbox. One of them is information and a link to the 21st century workplace readiness skills that are used by every CTE teacher in the state. Those are part of the competencies for each career and technical education class. So there's a link to that. There's also a link to Verso, which is the curriculum and the curriculum supports that are involved with the 21st century workplace readiness skills. And then there's also a link to the Office on Disability Employment Policy, and it's called Skills to Pay the Bills. And it's a curriculum that, is used for those, what we might call soft skills. And really, those soft skills are the workplace readiness skills. They're just in a different framework and a different curriculum. So those are 3 really nice additional resources for you to access as well. There's also a section on strategies to increase success that I'll talk about in more detail in a few slides. But really there are some tips and strategies for differentiating the skill sets and the activity sheets for all learners and for all family members. We have the 18 different skill areas, and there's an activity sheet for each skill area. I'll go into more depth, and Lisa will as well, into a couple of those activity sheets. And then there's also a 5C index. Some of you may not be familiar with what the 5 C's might be. They are part of the profile of a Virginia graduate that the Department of Education is supporting. And it looks at obviously 5 different competencies or skill areas that all start with C. There's citizenship, creative thinking, critical thinking, communication, and what's the last one?
Collaboration.
Did I say collaboration? Critical thinking, communication. There we go. There we go. Communication. So if you're looking for some activities that might line up with a 5C, we have the index there so that you can find some activities that would line up with a 5C. On the right side of your screen, you'll see the parts of each skill area or activity sheet. Lisa and I will both touch base on 2 different activity sheets, but just a quick overview. They will include an introduction or a definition of the skill, a menu typically of 3 different activities that you can do with your family. At least one of those will be one that does not require technology. And then there are some reflection questions.
Kendall, again, do you mind? We're going to go back and get a little bit of input from our participants again. Okay. We wanted to know, whose responsibility is it, do you think, in your opinion, is it to prepare students or your child, okay, for a job? Yay! It looks like
yay! Oh my gosh,
100%. Of course, everyone said it's all of the above. Unfortunately, sometimes when we're out in the field working, we don't always see this to be true. In fact, sometimes we're working with teachers and they'll say either, oh, I feel like, it's solely on me. This is just my responsibility. Or we'll hear the exact opposite, which sometimes we hear teachers who say, that's not my job. That's either a transition coordinator's job or that's, that agency's job. We hear similar things sometimes from some of our partnering agencies. Either they feel like they're working alone. There's no partnership there. I do have to tell you, I think one of the saddest things is when I do hear families and students who feel like they're in it by themselves. And I've heard that way too many times, is that, they feel like nobody's supporting them and helping them with future employment and things of this nature. So it's really, really sad. So we're all stronger together. When we learn, when we're collaborating, then that's where we're going to ensure that we have better outcomes. Okay. So Kendall, if you can go to the next. And again, we just want to really talk about one of the reasons why we felt there was a need for this toolbox was to really encourage collaboration among all of these partners. In other words, stronger working relationships between students, families, teachers, and agency representatives. Okay, not only is it going to probably increase our chances of better outcomes for our students with disabilities, but it also allows us to work more efficiently and be more focused. Kendall, you want to pull up that next poll question, please?
Yep.
Okay. It looked like, at least to everybody, some of these were shocking. One of the things that, we have as a country made some progress within the last few years is making sure that our students with disabilities, after they graduate from high school, more of our students are actually making it into the college or the university setting, at post-secondary school setting. For a long time, though, we were getting them in, but then they weren't graduating with degrees. And again, we're making progress with making sure that they not only get in, but they also graduate with degrees. But now we've got to make sure that after they get that degree, then that they're also using that degree in order to fulfill their employment goals. Most of you, this is coming of no shock to most of you, that people who experience autism often are the group or one of the groups with the worst outcomes of any other disability group. So, I think that's just a sad state of affairs. From 2008 to 2018, excuse me, there's been a real significant increase in the employment of people with disabilities. Again, from time to time, we make small changes, we make small progress, okay, in the employment of people with disabilities, but there's really been no huge or no significant decrease even of that employment, what we almost call the employment gap. In 2018, the employment rate for people with disabilities was only 37% as compared to 77% of people without disabilities. So we're not closing that gap. A lot of times what we see is as more people across the board become employed, then we have more people with disabilities becoming employed. But again, that was part of the reason. Kendall, if you want to go to the next slide. Part of the reason why we again said that we wanted to develop this toolbox is we know that we've got to work to improve the outcomes. Whoops, too many. Improve the outcomes of our students with disabilities. Okay, so these numbers are shocking, and unless we do things differently, we're not going to make significant improvements. Another two reasons, I don't know why it keeps teetering. Another couple
I think it's an automatic advance on that
my
particular
God.
slide. So I just keep putting it back and putting it back.
Okay. Another couple of reasons, though, why we felt at our Center for Transition Innovations that we needed to develop this toolkit was COVID hit us, and all of a sudden we weren't having as much face-to-face time or classroom time, seat time with our students as we had before. We had to come up with ways that we could provide families with some tools and some materials that they could use and that were family friendly to use within their home. The other reason is because we really did believe there's got to be greater collaboration between special education and career and technical education. We're really hoping in some respects that if we're using this toolbox with our students, that not only can we better prepare them to be successful in career tech ed classes, okay, but that we have partners who are speaking those same languages. We know this career readiness language is a language used within career technical education classrooms. We need to be speaking that same language within our special education classrooms. Kendall, take it away. It definitely wants to go there anyway.
I think people have an idea of what the next screen looks like.
I think so too.
So Lisa and I want to give you an idea and a little bit closer look at what the individual activity sheets look like that we've been referring to. So I'm going to cover one on creativity and innovation, and then Lisa's going to give you a little more in-depth look at another skill area. So this one's on creativity and innovation. A lot of times we think of creativity and we think of somebody who's very artistic. Maybe they paint, or they're a poet, or they do something with the visual arts, they dance or act. However, creativity is a really necessary tool for the workplace. Being able to be creative and innovative means that you're thinking of new and resourceful ways to problem solve in the work area. And this gives you a little bit of it gives you that definition, and then it also gives you a description. What does that mean? Now it could mean, and the example they give is you've got a lot of groceries to bring in. It's a creative solution and an innovative solution if you use a cart to bring all your groceries in rather than bringing them in individually. I was also, as I was looking at that, I was also thinking, I remember when I was growing up, when grocery carts came into the grocery store, it was, some poor guy who was out there pushing as many carts as they could possibly push. Somewhere along the line, somebody had the innovation to let's put a strap on those so that they stay all together and you're not losing grocery carts somewhere through. And I thought, what a great innovation. It's simple, it's cheap. Somewhere along the line, somebody thought that up, and that's a type of innovation in our workplace. Each activity sheet also includes 3 activities. On this particular one, I'll just tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll briefly touch on the other 2. It's called Circle Maker. And these are activities that you could do with the whole range of family members. If you have younger family members, if you have people, family members that might be visiting, some of these are really fun activities that you could do as an extended family even. So the Circle Maker, you're going to have everybody draw 10 circles on a piece of paper. And then you set the timer for 2 minutes. And within those 2 minutes, everybody is going to try to change a circle into something else. And it doesn't matter. It does not have to be perfect. Drawing skills are not required. It's just really a way of stretching the mind and being creative. How can I change this circle into something else? Maybe a fat pig, or a house that's round, a tennis ball. It can be anything. And it's fun to see what did your other family members come up with? Were there similarities? Who did something that was way outside of the box as far as making something out of a circle? So that's just an example of the sorts of activities that might be on these worksheets and on these activity sheets. And that's a perfect one. That's an example of one that does not require any sort of technology. There are also 2 more activities that are listed on this particular activity sheet. One is a 7-day project where you're going to pick anything that you want to do, whether it's a dance or photos or a line to a song, or even devising a different football play or coding technique or baking a new treat, but you're going to do it for 7 days. And it can be something that you add on to, or it can be something that you do something a little bit different every day, but it's going to be basically the same creative task. And then at the end of the 7 days, everybody in the family shares, what did you develop? And you're going to share what you developed. So it's sort of a show and tell. What have you done over the past 7 days that's creative, but related to something that interests you? And then the last one is seeing creativity in action, looking through different magazines or photo albums, yearbooks, or something that might be online, looking at places and identifying who are people who are exhibiting creativity or innovation. And you're going to talk about what makes that a creative or innovative practice. And then share with your child the creativity that you see in the pictures, even if it's in a different way. Maybe you'll both look at the picture and say, well, I see the person being creative in this way. How do you see the person being creative? Which I think is a really nice way of saying, how can we can both look at the same thing and see something different. I think that's a part of innovation and creativity as well, is recognizing that everything doesn't look the same and everybody doesn't have to get to the same conclusion in the same way. And then have your child demonstrate their creativity by doing things such as drawing or crafting, organizing a closet or a cabinet, the refrigerator in your home, organizing the refrigerator magnets maybe. There are lots of different ways to be creative and innovative in the home. And then it ends with some reflection activities or reflection questions. And these are going to be the same on all of the activity sheets. Questions such as, did the information help your family better understand this workplace readiness skill? And was it hard or easy to practice that skill? those are the sorts of reflection questions that we'd like everybody to follow up on so that there's that additional sharing within the family about that activity sheet. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it on to Lisa.
Can I just also piggyback off of Kendall?
You betcha.
When she was talking about the reflection questions, you know, one of the things, again, that we're trying to do through, especially if we're using these toolkits within the home, is to increase that collaboration between home and school. So, you know, really what we want is for families to be filling out these reflection questions and then bringing the answers to those reflection questions back into the school and sharing them in our IEP meetings with our teachers whenever we're talking about, you know, working on skills toward those students. So I just really wanted to stress that. That was the reason for those
great point.
Question. Yeah. Another one of the workplace readiness skills that we just wanted to highlight was critical thinking and problem solving. Not a surprise to anyone, this is one of our most popular downloaded workplace readiness skills tip sheets that we have. I just wanted to point out, do you see there in the middle, under where it has the description, it has examples of showing critical thinking and problem solving. And like there, I know it's kind of small print, maybe it's hard for you to read, but you know, we always give those practical, really practical examples. You're doing laundry for the first time on your own and not sure if you're going to do it right. Instead of giving up, you do an internet search of how to do laundry or ask a family member for help. You know, you overslept and you missed your ride to work. Instead of calling your supervisor to say you can't come into work today, you call to say you'll be late. Then you schedule an Uber driver or you call somebody to give you a ride. What I'd really love to encourage, you know, practitioners and families, whoever, review those examples so the kids see the definitions kind of in actual action. But then also, as a family or as a teacher, whatever, come up with more examples, making sure that the kids really do, or the students really do, get the concept of critical thinking and problem solving. If they come up with their own examples, they're kind of demonstrating, you know, that knowledge skill. We didn't get to see this in the menu of activities. Again, as Kendall said, on this particular one, they do always include at least three activities. And most often you'll see one of the three activities involve maybe just a little bit of teaching. In this particular one, again, I'm sorry I don't have a picture of it. The activity starts off with, it's called 4-step problem solving, where the students are asked to watch, or the children are asked to watch a soft skills critical thinking problem solving YouTube. Okay, and it's kind of funny. They discuss what the problem was in the video and how that particular employee handled the problem. We then want you to go over with your child, what are those 4 steps? We try to make it simple again for families. Identify the problem, think about a way to solve the problem, evaluate each solution and pick the best one. You know, pick your solution in action and make it work, you know, and stuff. So we then, after we discuss those, we ask the family to practice 4-step problem solving, watching another video that we give you. It's that age-old one called Stuck on the Elevator, where you have all of those folks who are riding an escalator, and then all of a sudden the escalator stops and, you know, everybody stands there, you know, and stuff like this. So, and again, after, you know, watching that, you know, go through the 4 steps and talk about each one of those steps. Kendall, can you advance?
Yep.
You can kind of see the other 2 activities. One, again, is solving problems around the house, you know, where we just ask you throughout the week, use situations that naturally occur or create problems for your child and practice problem solving. You know, how often do we solve the problem for our students or for our children, okay, rather than, you know, going through and trying to help them, teach them, model, and to practice, you know, those problem solving steps. So like the TV won't turn on, you know, you can't find the bread to make a sandwich, you know, your child can't find their shoes. Lord, I think probably some of you guys are going, these occur all the time in my home, you know, and again, it's way too easy for us to solve the problem for our children rather than to take those teachable moments and teach them how to problem solve themselves. That last activity with this one is just recognizing problems. So where we have you collect pictures that show problems, okay? ask them to help, you determine what is the problem, that's in this picture, and to brainstorm what are some possible solutions to those problems. How would you solve those problems? In addition to this, you can talk about real life problems. What's a problem that we've had within the home, that we've had to solve? What are some problems that I've had at work that I've come against and I've need to solve? So just, these are just kind of three building block activities, if you will. They're by no means an all-inclusive, set of ideas, but just ideas to get you started. Kendall?
So let's continue to take a closer look at the, at the strategies to increase success. Well, we'll just move on to this slide. There are some general strategies that are included with the strategies to increase success. There are also some strategies for non-readers. One of the things I'd really like to point out, though, is that these could be used for all learners. You may have, and all family members. This might be a way to accommodate younger family members so that they can be involved in the activities from the activity sheet. It could be that it's to accommodate a particular learner as well. So the general strategies, and some of these are really very general and ones that you probably want to do not out of differentiation, but just as part of good practice, such as positive reinforcement. These are not meant to, there shouldn't be consequences that are a part of doing these activities. These should be things that are fun for the family and something that is enjoyable. So we wanted there to be a lot of positive reinforcement. Hey, we're going to do this activity together. It's going to be a lot of fun. I like how, and then telling them, I like how you're doing that. And they give the example here. I like how you're careful putting away those utensils. Maybe they're putting some things away in the kitchen and being a helper to you as well. And then you're also going to want to provide reinforcement for any sort of positive or good behavior. And then there are some that are more specific, like first in. Maybe it's not a preferred activity. So first we're going to do this, and then you can do your preferred activity. Some others include easy, easy, hard. You know what's easy for your student or child to do. So start with those easy activities first. Offering two-way choices, basically what Lisa referred to earlier with her niece or great niece. She gets two choices for her outfits for the day and also her pajamas in the evening. But those are easy accommodations and strategies that are useful with these activities as well, giving them two choices. For example, maybe on that circle activity that I referred to earlier with creativity and innovation, would you like to do the circle activity, or would you like to do the 7-day activity where you do something different on the same, adding lines to a poem or adding lines to a song? Would you like to do that, or would you like to do the 10 circles and look at how you can adapt those 10 circles in 2 minutes into something different? A lot of the questions and a lot of the skills really go deep into things that are a little bit abstract, like conflict resolution. That can be a little bit abstract. Critical thinking can be pretty abstract. So when you can offer those yes or no options, when you're having a student come up with maybe they're supposed to come up with an example of a particular skill, but maybe you offer them a yes or no. For example, and they can be really, really simple depending on the understanding of the child. Give them an example of 2 employees, one who is late to work every single day because they have an alarm clock that doesn't work, and somebody who also has a broken alarm clock, but they've started setting their phone rather than relying on their broken alarm clock, and they're getting to work every day. Which one has problem-solving skills that help them to become a better employee? So giving them those sorts of yes, no, or sort of bilateral choices that they can look at. Provide warnings before you go into a new activity. Spreading it out. Maybe you're not going to do all 10 of the circles from the creativity activity all in one setting. Maybe you're going to do 2 each evening and see how different they are each evening. So those are just some general strategies. For non-readers, using visual schedules, anytime you can give those instructions through pictures or drawings in place of words, and task breakdowns, really breaking down rather than having one big task that the student has to or child has to complete, breaking them down into smaller steps. So those are just a few strategies to increase success and to help the activities to be a little more accommodating to different ages and different disabilities. Those intended audiences. So we've talked a lot about educators and we've talked a lot about families, and those are certainly our target audiences. Families with children and with disabilities of all ages. And like we've said before, we want them to be very family focused. We're not looking with the intent of these being activities that children will do on their own, but something that they're doing as part of a family activity, and including them as part of family routine so that they're not overwhelming to the family day. Educators sharing the information with families and students, and then continuing to build those skills through the additional resources that are available from the career and tech ed sites that we discussed earlier. The 21st Century Workplace Readiness Skills website, and then Verso that has that curriculum that goes along with it. They have a lot of really wonderful curriculum enhancements that you could use in your classroom. But we don't want to leave out our agency partners. Lisa talked about us moving outside of our silos so that we're not working alone and not feeling like we're all in our little silos working by ourselves. We certainly want these to be a resource for agency partners as well to share with consumers and families, but also just to be aware and support the initiative.
There are multiple ways in which you can use these toolboxes. Again, we really want to stress, Kendall, if you want to hit it, homeschool and within the community. And again, we really do hope that teachers find ways that you can incorporate some of the activities of this toolbox. Kendall, would you mind clicking?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. That teachers can use this toolbox within classrooms. Imagine how powerful it could be if, Kendall talked earlier about, we selected the 18, what we thought were the most appropriate skills for our students. 18 also happens to be the number of weeks they're in one semester of a school year. So, what we were thinking was, wouldn't it be wonderful if maybe a teacher, once a week could have, this is a workplace readiness skills that we're going to be focusing on. And then they send this toolbox, tip sheet to their parents. And so while we're talking about it at school, okay, on problem solving and critical thinking, then the family's also doing some of that same sharing. And then it's even better, when our community partners, anyone who's working with that student within the community is also using that same language and working on those same skills. So as we said, we could pick what we pick a weekly workplace readiness skill, okay, and focus that whole week on that skill. If you need to, maybe you could even pick one if you wanted to do this across the year, pick one skill and do it, one skill for every other week, and then you would still be able to cover all 18 of these skills. The other way that you could do it is select specific areas based on the individual, based on their strengths and weaknesses. In another project that we worked with, Kendall and I developed a little extremely informal evaluation of these workplace readiness skills. We could see, in other words, we said, what would these skills look like if you're in 6th grade? What would a work ethic look like, for you as a 6th grader or an 8th grader, something of that nature. And just really informally, we have that little evaluation. And we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful also maybe if you could do an evaluation like that on your own students or on your own child, okay? And then maybe you say, this is an area of need for him. So these are the ones that I'm going to focus on, okay? Or these are some strength areas that I really do even want to strengthen more. So I'm going to focus on some of these areas. But you can either do it just pick a skill randomly and make sure that we're covering all 18 skills, or we can pick a skill based on the individual. Kendall, you want to advance? How do I access this toolbox? First of all, you go to the, whoa, it's going to go really fast.
Yes.
You go to our center's website, the Center on Transition Innovations, okay? You will see where it says to transition topics, okay? You'll select that. Then on the left-hand side, you'll select employment. Then you'll select the workplace readiness skills. And that's where we're at now. Boy, that went fast. We're going to do it again, okay? And on that workplace readiness skills, on that particular website, on that page, sorry, you can either choose to download the entire toolbox at one time, or we give you a listing of all the different toolboxes and all the different skills, and you can just download the individual skills. Your choice, your preference. You see right there, it says toolbox, okay? And then there's a listing of all the different skills that you can download individually. You want to advance now, Kendall?
Just a few other notable resources from the Center on Transition Innovations, that might be of interest to you. There is a whole series called Focus on Autism that includes videos and some print resources. All of our resources on autism and related to transition are packaged in the same area on the website. There's also something called the Work is for Everyone video series. And there's about, half a dozen videos there, Lisa, looking at different students that the Center on Transition Innovations has worked with over the years, or is associated with in some form, and what their work experience has looked like, what sort of supports they've received, and what their work experience looks like now. We also have 2 student courses, one called the Get Ready for College, a resource for teens with disabilities, a second one that should be ready very, very soon if it's not out already, called Get Ready for Work, Preparing for Career Success, and then a third that is the next to be developed that's focused on independent living. It is yet, does not have a formal title yet. So look, that will be the next one to be developed. And that concludes our part of the presentation. Excuse me, does anybody have any questions? I'm not sure what might be in the chat.
Hey, I'm Katie, and I'm just gonna help sort of look through the chat for you, Lisa and Kendall, if that's okay. And
oh, thank you.
Let's see. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and just post about next week. So I think you'll have a slide coming about that, but I wanted to make sure I got that in there. It looks like Diana is saying thank you for the great resources and information. I also wanted to just mention that Joe included the link in our chat. He'd already Google searched it while you guys were talking and threw it in the chat for everyone.
Oh, good.
We appreciate that. So make sure that you go ahead and add that to your favorites, everyone, because I know we're right at our time. If anyone has questions, let's see. Oh, where do we get the recording of today's session? Actually, there is an archive page on the ACE website. And if you look up in the chat, I posted that, but I am gonna post it one more time again here so that you don't have to look for it there. Anne says, thank you.
You are welcome.
Holly says, great information. I know folks it's kind of coming in quickly. Yeah.
Kendall, do you want to advance so they can see that?
Yeah.
So next week, November 5th, is Improving Schoolwork Motivation in a Virtual World with Noelle Woolard and Mary Catherine Jones.
Okay.
So that'll be the topic next week. And then for questions or more information, visit vcuautismcenter.org, or you can email autismcenter@vcu.edu, or for any transition related topics, go to centerontransitioninnovations.org@VCU.
Yeah. It was a really wonderful presentation, Kendall and Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sounds like this stuff is going to be, printed, used actively based on what I see in the chat. So
Wonderful. We're glad.
Very good.
yes. All right. I think everybody's good to go. There's a question about signing up for next week's post that I'll reply to. And any other questions, feel free to post them real quick before we close out. Awesome. Great presentation. Lots of positive feedback. I love it, right?
Good, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kendall, I think you're the one who has to close, right? The end.